Hello, RDs and RDs to be. Welcome to the RD Exam Ready podcast. I'm Zach Caseberg, your tutor, your coach, your guide along the path to passing the RD exam. My biggest passion is to help RDs and RDs to be just like you to know how to effectively pass the CDR exam. If that sounds like you, then hey, you're in the right place. If you're listening live, then hopefully you've gotten a chance to join us for some of our live sessions that we've done on YouTube, on the RD Exam Ready Live YouTube page there. So if you've joined us on YouTube, you've gotten the chance to sit in on some lessons with us. The most recent one we just did was on medications, and I think it was a really good quality lesson, and a lot of students have been enjoying those lessons. We're going to have another one upcoming this next Wednesday, June 3rd of 2026 if you're listening live. We're going to take some time together to really work through some just plain old practice questions. Haven't had a session like this in a few weeks, few months, so I said, hey, we need to do some practice questions together. Come to that session, come work with me on your test taking skills, work through your strategy, and see where you're at on your practice questions as well. If you do want to join that, make sure you just go to the RD Exam Ready YouTube page, go to the live section, and click notify under the upcoming session. Watch some other videos while you're there if you haven't, and make sure you follow on the RD Exam Ready Instagram page, YouTube, TikTok, and everything in between. Quality is an underrated element that can be measure the financial success of a business as well as the satisfaction of the customers of that business. You see, today with quality of products, right, nothing is more annoying than spending a lot of money on something to have it break within the first year. Or conversely, when you really get a good bargain on something and it is high quality and you use it forever, it makes you really happy, or at least it makes me really happy. I would say we can all agree quality is essential for a good company, a good product, and a good service, right? This hyper focus on quality has helped to create different models, theories, and different tools out there for quality improvement within a business. There are things like Six Sigma, Kaizen, Lean, CQM, and TQM are all topics that you've possibly picked up along the way of your time in studying and going into the things of quality improvement. Some of it may be interesting to you, most of it may not be. Um, for quality assurance and every quality improvement model, are they all going to be necessary for the exam day? Absolutely not. But specifically on the exam outline, they do point out specific pieces that we need to know for exam day. Things like a cost benefit analysis, productivity analysis, program and product analysis as well. I don't know about you, when I hear those three topics, I don't have a lot of stuff that comes right off the top of my head. So we all need to review these topics a little bit together and make sure we're ready to apply quality improvement knowledge on your exam day. This one, which I think is the easiest one to understand, is what we're going to start with. We're going to talk through a cost benefit study or a cost benefit analysis. The purpose of it, of a cost benefit study, is showing the cost versus the benefit of a program or even a decision within the business. Now, when you're thinking of cost and benefit, I want you to think very specifically about what this analysis is asking about or talking about. It's talking about cost and the benefit. And with that, it's truly looking at things from a financial lens, a heavily financial manner. Because there are programs out there and things that exist in the world that have a high cost, but do things for a benefit of things like quality of life, right? Maybe it's not necessarily a financial focused. So a cost benefit itself is really going to hone in on those financial benefits and financial costs when it's looking at that. A different type of this would be a cost effectiveness analysis. Now, these are separate and different, but share some similarities. This is helpful to provide this alternative comparison of alternative courses of action in terms of their cost and the effectiveness in attaining a specific objective of the program or business. So it's not just looking at the cost, it's looking at the multiple outcomes, the alternative courses of action in a decision for a business. So maybe they are going to improve something and they've got three options to go with, and the cost effectiveness really looks at which of these is going to be best and most effective, not just financially sound. Let's use an example to help us out a little bit with a cost benefit versus cost effectiveness. Okay, let's say our business has four different pies in our bakery. Pie A is a partial scratch pie. Pie B is a scratch pie. Pie C is a frozen, ready to serve product. And the fourth one is a frozen, ready to bake product. The cost benefit analysis, excuse me, would be looking at things like the ingredient cost, the labor cost of making that pie and serving it to the customers. It's really looking at the cost and the benefit that we see from serving it. The cost effectiveness tool is when we're looking at other factors, such as the quality of the pies being served. Maybe we rank the quality from 1 to 5. Or we look at customer effectiveness as well and rank it on a 1 to 5. What you should see here is that in a cost effectiveness analysis, you're including other factors in there, not necessarily just from the financial lens. You're looking at how your customers, how your staff, how other people are going to see to make sure you're meeting the objectives of your business, of your company. So, cost benefit, think very financial focused, cost effective, considering other elements with multiple courses of action. So, cost effectiveness is helping you to choose between multiple courses of action. Action is going to be very heavy when we talk about things. This next part is going to be definition heavy, specifically. In order to fully understand quality and quality improvement, you have to understand concepts like total quality management or TQM. What it is it's a philosophy where processes are refined with the goal of improving performance in response to customer needs and expectations. That's kind of lengthy, right? It involves an organization continuously improving its own processes with the goal of keeping high quality products or services. I want to emphasize that TQM focuses on customers by identifying and satisfying their needs and expectations. That is a root to TQM, and you need to remember that. It involves both your internal and external customers. The external customers are those who pay you for your service or your product. Your internal customers are actually your employees, for instance, and the managers who work with those services or products. TQM also encourages employee participation in identifying problems and finding solutions for those problems to help improve overall performance. Let's use the example of quality of pureed foods served on our tray line. You'd want to use TQM to work with those frontline staff members who can help you with identifying problems of the pureed menu, finding solutions for the pureed menu, and for the business to improve quality. The managers of those employees are the ones responsible for facilitating and supporting that growth, supporting that change, and helping to empower them to improve quality of performance. If you're not aware of what empowerment is, it's just when you're allowing or helping your employees to act independently within their own job and their own job description, maybe kind of letting them have some of the say or decisions in a manner. Now, staying with TQM, but taking a little step to the side, is continuous quality improvement. This is known as CQI. It's a philosophy that works parallel to TQM. But CQI is a bit more focused on providing leadership, structure, training, and an environment in which to continuously improve all organizational processes. CQI doesn't have an endpoint, it's meant to be continuous into its focus on the process of the business rather than the people. And keeping in mind, like I said here, it's looking at much more of the organizational processes of it to improve the quality of the product. Whereas TQM, remember, it was much more on identifying problems, finding solutions. That's what it really wanted to do is look at those problems, identify solutions, and identify and satisfy the needs of customers and their expectations. So CQI is wrapped up within TQM. It just kind of focuses on a different element here, as you can tell. The next one we're going to talk about here is going to be the concept of Six Sigma. Six is in the number, Sigma is in the sign. Six Sigma really aims to achieve a near perfect performance by minimizing defects and variation within a process. In healthcare and food service management, dietitians use Six Sigma principles to improve patient care, reduce mealtime delivery errors, decrease the food waste, or streamline workflow processes. One of the most important elements of Six Sigma is its framework, which DMAIC it stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. I don't think you need to know that for the exam, but first, the problem is defined. Then the data is measured and collected. The data is analyzed to determine the root cause of the problem. Improvements are implemented. And finally, controls are put in place to ensure the improvements are maintained over time. What you need to know for exam day is that Six Sigma focuses on quality improvement through reducing variation in defects using a structured and data driven approach. The next one that kind of is similar to this is Kaizen. Kaizen is this really cool Japanese philosophy that focuses on continuous incremental improvement. Incremental is like going up keys on a piano. Increment is like one key after the other, small little changes. The word Kaizen translates to change for the better or better change. And what it emphasizes is small, ongoing improvements rather than large, dramatic changes at once. This philosophy encourages everyone within the organization, from frontline employees to managers, to participate in identifying problems and suggesting improvements. By making these small improvements over time, organizations can increase efficiency, improve quality, reduce waste, and enhance overall performance. In healthcare and food service, dietitians may use Kaizen principles by continuously evaluating workflows, improving patient education processes, and reducing food waste for sent back trays. For exam day, I would just keep in mind that Kaizen is centered on continuous quality improvement through small, ongoing, incremental changes involving all members of the organization, not just those at the highest management. Another one will be lean method. Lean method is another quality improvement approach. It focuses on maximizing value while specifically minimizing waste. Lean hates waste. It hates the fat, the trim, as you can imagine or think of with lean. It hates the fat, it hates the extra. Originally, it was developed by Toyota. Lean seeks to improve efficiency by identifying and eliminating activities that don't add value to the customer, to the patient, or to who's buying your product. Lean really looks at waste, like I said, including things like excess inventory, unnecessary movement, waiting time, overproduction, dirty workspaces, defects, and inefficient processes. By trimming or removing those sources of the waste, an organization can improve their productivity, reduce costs, and enhance the quality of their product. In healthcare and in food service, dietitians may use lean principles to streamline their meal production, reduce food waste, improve the patient flow, decrease waiting times, and help optimize staffing and resource utilization. A key concept in lean is this continuous evaluation of the processes to determine which steps add value and which steps can be reduced or eliminated. The ultimate goal for lean is to create a more efficient process that delivers better outcomes through those by reducing the waste and maximizing the value for the patient or the customer. So, to review, Kaizen asks, how can we continuously improve through small steps? Lean asks, what waste can we eliminate? And Six Sigma asks, how can we reduce errors and variations through use of data? That's all you need for exam day for those three guys right there. Productivity improvement is an important concept in food service management and healthcare administration. At its core, productivity refers to the efficient use of resources, including things like employees, equipment, financial assets, to help to help achieve those desired outcomes. Productivity is often expressed as the ratio of output to input. In other words, it measures how much output is produced compared to the resources required to put into it. My helpful thing here is like, hey, you think of gas mileage, right? As a kind of an efficient use of a productive use of time. So how much gas versus how much output of miles that I get. For food service managers, measuring productivity is essential because labor and operational costs represent probably the most significant portion of your budget. As healthcare costs continue to rise, as we have to pay people more, managers are under increasing pressure to improve efficiency while maintaining quality, care, and customer satisfaction. Productivity can be evaluated by comparing those inputs, such as labor hours, food costs, equipment usage, with the outputs, such as meals served, patient fed, or revenue generated. These measurements are helpful to managers to identify trends, compare performance across department, and benchmark results against industry standards so that we can make improvements in our product. There's really a couple strategies to improve productivity. This would include things like eliminating low value activities that waste time, like we talked about with like Kaizen, like the lean method, increase use of technology, standard work processes to reduce errors and rework, utilize teamwork and implement evidence based practices. Quality improvement initiatives and effective work design can also contribute to greater efficiency in using your resources much better. Ultimately, productivity can be increased by reducing the resources required to complete a task, increase the amount of output produced, or accomplish both simultaneously. But for your exam day, remember productivity is the relationship between outputs and inputs and serves as a very key measure of operational efficiency and the path moving forward towards quality improvement. Now we're getting towards the end of our lesson here. We just have a few different tools and a few different models to introduce for process improvement when we need to improve a process. I talked about just a minute ago benchmarking. You heard me mention that perhaps. Benchmarking is a helpful tool that a business use, and it compares one single employee's performance to the employee who's at the top of the company. So our basically, how does this employee compare to our best performer of the whole company? Comparing your assistant manager and areas on which to focus on, this is a helpful way to say, how does this assistant manager compared to our top assistant manager on the things that they do, and how can we improve their efforts? There's some analysis tools that you should be familiar with a bit as we're going through. And these really help as being cause effect diagrams. These are different models that can be used to improve the to improve a process quality. We can talk about a bit of the first one, which is a cause effect diagram, also known as Ishikawa or fishbone diagrams, as they're most commonly known. Fishbone diagrams, if you can picture on its head, you kind of have a direct line that's horizontal, and then you have a little branch off, like fish bones that branch off of a spine a little bit. So, what a fishbone does is it looks at the cause and effect. It looks at the different factors that may influence or cause a different outcome. Let's use an example. Let's start with our outcome. Cold patient trays are being delivered. So, patient gets the tray, tray is cold. Meow, meow, no good. We can use a fishbone to then break off and branch out and say, what are the reasons that we have cold trays? One of the causes on those fish bones might be that our cart material is flimsy and plastic and it doesn't hold the food temperature very well. It could be that the environment of the hospital or the kitchen is just cold from the air conditioning, and environmentally it's affecting things there. It could be that the staff isn't delivering the food in a quickly enough manner, and that's why things are being cold. Fishbone just helps you to break down the cause and effect, and that's what you could then identify as saying, well, this cause is having the greatest effect to this. So that gives you a nice method of how you want to go forward to improve the process and help improve your customer satisfaction, of course. The next one is a Pareto analysis or a Pareto chart, and it's known by this 80/20 rule. The Pareto chart says that 80% of a given outcome typically results from 20% of the input. So only a fifth of the input that you put in leads to the maximum amount of outcome, is what it's saying. This has been demonstrated in all different kinds of companies. For instance, if you look at clothing sales, you might find that 80% of all clothing sales comes from a small 20% of customers, right? Maybe it's women 40 to 65 years old or something. In the analysis, it really helps you to understand that basically there are a few vital causes that, if identified and corrected, can have the greatest impact on improving quality. If you improve that 20%, you're going to maximize your output from the 80%. And this helps you just to improve your process itself and know about what's the best next step. A third model is the root cause analysis, and this analysis focuses on identification of the root cause of a given problem. Let's use our cold tray example in this case. Well, with a root cause analysis, you ask a lot of why questions. Why were the trays delivered cold? Well, they were delivered cold because they were delivered late by the delivery operator. Why was the delivery operator late? Oh, because no one told them that the trays were ready to be sent out. Why did no one tell them that the trays were ready to be sent out? Because we don't have an existing methods for us to page them when a tray is ready and notify them. So you see, with a root cause analysis, it really helps you to ask the why of getting into more of the root cause of the problem. And finally, when it comes to quality improvement or process improvement, I always think of one of my favorite models that would be helpful for you to know for exam day, as I know people see questions on it. And that's the Focus PDSA, or Focus PDCA as it's also known. Focus stands for, it's basically, it just breaks it down. Focus stands for F, find a process to improve. O, organize a team that knows the process. C, clarify current knowledge of the process. U, understand the cause of the process variation. And S, select the process. So when you have a problem, you can use the focus to help you to say, well, what is the problem? Who kind of is included on this? And what do we need to do to fix it? Right? Then you can use that into the PDSA or PDCA. They're the exact same thing when it comes to PDCA and PDSA. It stands for Plan, Do, Study, Act, or it stands for Plan, Do, Check, Act. Like I said, they're the exact same thing. I just use PDSA. I have used and what the point of the PDSA is, you're kind of doing plan, do, study, act. So you're planning your pilot study, you're planning your process improvements, you're doing it, you're implementing it. Your S, you're studying, or C, checking to see, hey, how did it do? Did it solve our problem? And act would mean to implement that performance improvement model forever. That's how you're going to do it forever. I've got a nice little kind of story and example to tell you about to kind of end our session here, and then we'll go into our practice questions. So, you've probably heard me talk about this before, but I used a PDSA once when I was an oncology dietitian. Here's the problem. I would Patient would need to start tube feeding. So I would go and send out their tube feeding orders. And what would happen is all these insurance companies just kept denying the insurance for the tube feeding supplies, which was a big issue because these people really needed the supplies when I submitted it and they were being late to get it to them. So what I did was is I found my problem, which is that insurance is not approving the supplies. Organized a team of doctors, of nurses, of the insurance billing people, and the insurance agents themselves. Then I clarified. I said, what's our current process that we do? What are we doing right now? Understand why it wasn't working. Okay, understand what was the problem itself, and what was contributing to this. Then I selected a solution, is what I did. And my solution was I created a smart phrase, a small phrase that doctors could drop into their doctor's notes. And then when the insurance goes to check the doctor's notes, they would see that doctor's note and say, this patient is ready to start getting their supplies. Easy, right? So what I did was I planned my pilot study, said, how are we going to implement this? I did it. Did it. I implemented it and said, we're going to start using this smart phrase. I studied it. I said, did this improve things? Did we see improvement as a result of implementing this smart phrase? And I acted. It did work. So I implemented it long term forever. And I believe that's the same way that they get insurance to approve their supplies today. My recommendation for your exam day, though, is to come up with your own example of a focused PDSA or use mine, and you could reference something that you did as an in service project when you were a dietetic intern, or even something you might have done in your career before you decided to go into dietetics, right? Find something that really sticks with you because once you have that model, it's going to serve you so well when you see questions like this for exam day. Speaking of questions, let's talk through a little bit together. Using process of elimination, we're going to help ourselves to eliminate bad answers, put question marks by ones we're not sure of, and check marks by the one we feel is our best option. Let's start out with number one. A data driven approach and technique for eliminating defects and reducing variations in a process is known as A, lean, B, Kaizen, C, Six Sigma, or D, Focus PDSA. A data driven approach and technique for eliminating defects and reducing variations in a process is known as. Let's use process of elimination to help us out to find the best one. For A, lean. Lean was all about reducing waste, right? I don't remember it being very data driven to focus on that or focus on variations. It seemed like lean was like trim the fat type of a thing. To me, RD to B, I would say I would get rid of A here because I don't think it fits based on what I know about this. B, Kaizen. Kaizen is all about incremental, small little changes, a better change as it's known there. I don't remember it being so data driven though, but I could see how it could eliminate defects. I don't think Kaizen's a good answer. I think I'm going to rule out Kaizen or put a question mark by it. C, Six Sigma. Six Sigma was a data driven approach that looked at eliminating defects and reducing variations in a process. I would say C, Six Sigma is a good answer that I'm going to put a check mark by. D, Focus PDSA. This is when we're finding a problem and then we're going to look at a pilot study to fix that problem, like we just looked at. I'm sure it includes data, but I heard nothing about it being specifically a data driven approach for eliminating defects. It was more about solving a problem. So to me, D would not be a good answer. And for a data driven approach and technique for eliminating defects and reducing variations in a process known as answer C, Six Sigma will be our best answer there. Which number two, which of the following is true regarding a cost effectiveness analysis? Cost effectiveness analysis. A, it only explores the financial cost and financial benefit of a program. B, it explores the cost of only one strategy, not multiple strategies. C, it is not concerned with the cost of the outcome. Or D, it compares cost of alternative strategies. Which of the following is true regarding a cost effectiveness analysis? Starting with A, it only explores the financial cost and financial benefit of a program. This is not a true statement, right? Cost is important to it. However, it's not cost and benefit. That sounds like a cost benefit analysis. Cost effectiveness is different. B, it explores the cost of only one strategy, not multiple strategies. Okay, I'm going to put a little question mark by that one. C, it is not concerned with the cost of the outcome. Well, that doesn't feel like a correct statement because it literally says, which is true regarding a cost effectiveness analysis. So C is not a good answer there. D, it compares the cost of alternative strategies. Okay, so B is explores the cost of only one strategy, not multiple strategies. And D is comparing the cost of alternative strategies. I would say for cost effectiveness, D would be my best answer because, like we talked about with the pie example, we have all these different options, different directions we could go, but we're trying to see what's the most cost effective tool for reaching those objectives. B would not be a good fit because it only looks at one change or one strategy. So, which of the following is true regarding a cost effectiveness analysis? Answer D. It compares cost of alternative strategies. Number three, a dietitian has discovered issues with insurance billing for at home TPN supplies for patients. They find the problem, organize a team. What should the dietitian do next? Should they A, understand the problem, B, conduct a pilot study, C, identify and explain the current process, or D, study the outcome of the pilot study? All right. The dietitian discovers issues with insurance billing for at home TPN supplies for patients. They find the problem and organize a team. What should they do next? So we have F, found the problem. O, organized a team. We would need to then C, right? Clarify. What are we clarifying? The current process. So let's apply that to these answers. For A, understand the problem. That doesn't sound like that because that would be you, right? That would be the you of understanding the problem itself. A is not a good answer. B, conduct a pilot study. Well, it's nice that it starts with C. However, I need to clarify and understand the current process. A pilot study is what I do in PDSA, and I don't need to do that yet. So I'm going to rule out answer B. C, identify and explain the current process. This feels like a great answer for this third question, and I'm going to put a check mark by it. Or D, study the outcome of the pilot study. Well, that would be in the PDSA part of it, in the pilot study part, so it's definitely not in the focus. So, for a dietitian who discovered issues with insurance billing for at home TPN supplies for patients, they find a problem, organize a team. The next thing they should do is C, they're going to identify and explain the current process. That wraps up today's lesson, students. I hope you watched, listened, learned, and enjoyed today's show. Remember, passing this exam is a journey. We all need assistance along the way. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Tell other studying students. Check me out social media, RD Exam Ready. Check us out for our live sessions coming up. Look in the description of this podcast if you do want to join that live. Rate, review, help spread the word. And as always, happy studying.